Ego wants to just go fast and hard and is driven. Think of the fastest car. What's the fastest car you can think of? So you get in this Ford Mustang, you put the seatbelt on, you're gonna put the gas pedal all the way to the floor. What if there is no steering wheel? Would you do it? No, because you're gonna crash. You have no way of controlling that car. And that's what ego does. Ego gets us to the point of, I'm gonna push this, I'm gonna get that gas pedal all the way to the floor. But humility is the steering wheel.
The new Flat Rate Podcast.
The new Flat Rate!
For contractors ready to boost tickets, simplify business, and gain freedom. Today, we sat down with Schalee Sanchez, author of The Humility You Want and the World Needs, keynote speaker, and host of the Flex with Purpose podcast. And now your host, me, Natalie Koop, and your co-host, Danielle Putnam. Today, we're joined by Schalee Sanchez, author, speaker, and host of the Flex with Purpose podcast. In this episode, we're talking about why humility might be one of the most overlooked leadership skills in business and how learning to lead with humility can help you build a stronger team, make better decisions, and grow both personally and professionally. Schalee, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, Natalie, Danielle. I am thrilled to get to have this conversation with you. Thank you for inviting me.
When people hear the word humility, they often think it means being quiet or lacking confidence. What does humility actually look like in leadership?
That is something that over and over I hear people talk about. And there's these misconceptions about, if I'm going to be humble, that means that I need to let other people talk and I just need to sit back and listen. And true humility actually makes us more aware of the strengths that we possess that enable us to contribute. So we actually have a more awareness of our ability to add something in the context that will be beneficial and useful, whether that is at a meeting or we're engaging with a customer. The ability that we have to know in this moment, I do have something to say that is valuable and important, and then having that courage and boldness to say it with confidence is grounded in humility.
You say humility can be a business advantage. Why do you believe it gives leaders an edge instead of holding them back?
There are several stories that leaders have been able to really change the dynamics of their team because they have allowed humility to influence them. And one of those principles, or one of the things that has really had an impact in some significant companies, is when the CEO or the president of the company is able to acknowledge and receive feedback from the people they are leading about things that they need to change. A humble leader is able to receive that and then act on it and actually implement those changes that will be beneficial for the company. The opposite of that is when a leader has a sense of needing to protect their identity and has a sense of, I know what I'm doing, I'm right, and this is the way it's going to be, and maintaining something that actually is not beneficial for the company as a whole. So one of the greatest advantages that humility provides for a leader is the ability to listen without being defensive or without feeling like I'm being attacked or my identity or my reputation is under attack in this moment. That sets a company up for continued growth, for continued progress, having that willingness as a leader, not just to listen to one or two people, but allow input from every level in your company. And that's, I think, one of the strongest advantages that humility provides for any industry, really.
That's really good, Schalee. The visual that came to my mind as you're talking about this is how the lack of humility is the bottleneck that the leader is creating. And then the fear there, I personally knows this. I hate to admit all my faults, but you know, we feel like we've got to be right, that we've got to be front and center. We have to know the right answers all the time, that we always have to be in the front leading the charge. It's difficult to resist that urge. So to allow yourself as a leader to open up and to receive feedback
Mhm.
so that you're no longer the bottleneck and then the company can expand. But pinpointing, here's my point in commenting on what you're saying is pinpointing, sometimes it could be a lack of humility that's keeping you small.
Yes.
Interesting.
That is stated so well, Danielle. It actually is a misconception that if you're humble, you're going to stay small, when actually humility expands your capacity. Why? Because you are bringing people who actually know more than you do into the decision making process. And one of the things that you mentioned and is very common among leaders is this misconception of ourselves as a leader. I need to have all the answers. I'm going to look weak if I admit that I don't know what to do in this situation or if I ask for help. This is something that I got to share just recently at a Chamber of Commerce, a group of, a wide variety of industries, and discussing this very topic of, as a leader, it is often hard for us to ask for help, but we actually set ourselves up for greater success when we take that barrier down of, no, I need to have the answer, and we go to someone who knows more than we do, ask them to help us in that particular situation. And that allows for an increased level of growth, not just for us personally, but for our company. And I think that that's so key. The definition that I like to use for humility is living beyond ourselves. So we get past this idea of, it's going to change my reputation if I go and do this. And we see a bigger picture that we are a part of. And that allows us to make decisions that will then have a greater impact in a more positive way.
Humility, living beyond ourselves. I like that.
Uh,
What's this isn't one of the questions. I apologize, Natalie. But what is the worst thing that could happen? Leaders don't want to be seen as weak, but what's the worst thing that could happen if they say, "Hey, I need help"?
Oh, that's Danielle, that is a question no one has ever asked me. I love that question. What is the worst thing that could happen? I definitely have thought of what is the worst thing that can happen if we don't ask for help or if we don't allow humility to guide us. But as I think about all the conversations that I've had with people, and I think about just from own personal experience of those moments when I decided to ask for help or I've seen other people do that. And there are a few things that could happen. You could go to someone and ask for help, and they could be like, they could just completely either not have a good answer for you or be like, well, you should already know this. Like, why don't you know this already? So they could make you feel bad, right? Which is a temporary situation that
Yeah.
you're definitely going to be able to get over. I think that there could be a little bit of embarrassment, maybe, and some of those kind of feelings, but those feelings are so temporary compared to the long term benefit that you're going to have.
And these are feelings. So the worst that could happen so far, what we've listed is you could have some feelings.
Exactly. Right.
So your company could grow, or if it blows up in your face, you could have some feelings.
Yeah.
What are some signs that ego, not a lack of skill, is actually what's holding a business owner back?
Oh, that is a great question. I love that. So there are times when we do lack a skill. And the thing is, ego won't allow us to admit that and go learn it.
Mhm.
And so ego holds us back from learning something new. We want to look like we know everything. We don't like that initial being bad at something in order to get good at it. And that is ego right there. Every time that we resist being bad at something in order to get good at it, that is a definite sign. If I'm not willing to learn something new, or if I'm not willing to be bad at it for a period of time in order to learn it, that's definitely ego influencing that. Another thing that, if we get to a point of not wanting to get feedback from other people, if we're like, no, I'm going to make this decision, I know that this is what's best, and we're only able to see what is in our perspective, that is ego telling us. And humility will always open us up to getting feedback. And it's done in a way also that we're not just going to ask random people, right? We're intentional about it. And so we find people that we know have expertise, have knowledge in that particular area that we're making the decision regarding, so that we can get feedback that's really going to be beneficial for us. And I would say one other thing, Natalie, that is a sign of ego pushing us is a sense of urgency. Sometimes people don't relate that, but ego wants to just go fast and hard and is driven. If you, though, I like this illustration. Think of the fastest car. What's the fastest car you can think of driving? Okay, a Ford Mustang. So you get in this Ford Mustang, you put the seatbelt on, you're gonna go what, 100 and I don't know how fast a Ford Mustang can go, 160 maybe, I don't know. I went to the state fair one time, and they had those, like, you could test them and you could just like go as fast as you could go, kind of a thing. Okay, so you get in, you put the seatbelt on, you're gonna put the gas pedal all the way to the floor. What if there is no steering wheel? Would you do it? No, because you're going to crash. You have no way of controlling that car, even though it's going to be going fast and you're going to get the adrenaline. You're going to run into something because you don't have a steering wheel. And that's what ego does. Ego gets us to the point of, I'm going to push this, I'm going to get that gas pedal all the way to the floor. But humility is the steering wheel that provides the compass so that we have direction in arriving safely at our destination.
That's an incredible example. I can see our audience and our listeners. We've got some incredible leaders and incredible business owners. But for all of us to be able to open up and realize, yeah, we don't like driving race cars without steering wheels. So
Mhm.
I need to make sure that I have the accountability in my life and allow my team or others to speak into my life so that we make sure that we have the best steering wheels that we can. Like at
Definitely.
that speed, I want better than a steering wheel. I want a good steering wheel, right?
Yes.
I want to elevate. I want to up my level of steering wheel.
Yes. Up my spirit.
Well, we all do, Danielle, have blind spots.
Sure.
And it requires other people speaking into our lives for us to be able to recognize those. And that's what you were talking about. You use the word accountability. That's huge, right? As a leader, we need to allow other people to speak into the situations, the decisions that we're making, and help us see what we're not able to see on our own.
Mhm. I think wisdom is really important too. There's a lot of people that want to speak into our lives, and there's a lot of opinions out there, but it's okay to have wisdom and use a filter and listen to wise counsel. I don't, I get so tired of everybody trying to tell me what to do all the time in life. I'm like, no, but there are a few approved people that can absolutely point out those blinders, and I welcome it.
Yes, which is a posture of humility, right? Having that willingness to welcome it. And as you were talking about, also having the wisdom to not just listen to everybody who thinks they have something to say.
Right. There's a lot of noise in the world.
Yes, there is.
So I want to talk about a book. You wrote a book called The Humility You Want and the World. What inspired you to write it? And what's the core message you hope readers take away?
The inspiration for the book, The Humility You Want and the World Needs, came from my own observation over the decades. I'm 46. So I have noticed throughout my life the difference that it makes for a leader who is driven by arrogance and a leader who is guided by humility. That is seen all over history in all different cultures. I actually bring that into a section of my book and talk briefly about humility throughout history and across cultures. There are so many ways that humility has impacted in a positive way. And I wanted to highlight that for people because alongside that, there's been several misconceptions about humility, some that held me back and for a season of my life kept me small, thinking that I was being humble when I actually wasn't. And my own growth and experience with that of not only noticing how arrogance was damaging different areas of our culture and world through certain political leaders or leaders of different organizations, but bringing it internally and seeing how arrogance was damaging my own life. And that there are very specific ways that each of us can have practical tools to be able to recognize when ego is the influence and when we have opportunity to open ourselves up and increase the humility that is guiding our lives.
I can't wait to read it. I hate that I didn't read it before our time together. But I can't wait.
Yeah, so Natalie, to answer the second part of that question, so that was what inspired it. And the second part of that is what I hope for people to take away from reading the book is that they can live boldly and freely. I want them to be able to have what they need to fully reach their potential. And it applies to everyone in every industry. It's actually been very surprising to me. I thought that there would kind of be a target audience that would be attracted to the book and having conversations about humility. And what I have learned, and this is almost exactly a month ago that I published the book, in all of the conversations that I've had, it has ranged from college students who are in their early 20s to adults who are in their 70s that have had all different professions and all different experiences in life. Humility is such an essential part of us being able to be good leaders and have really strong relationships with people.
Are you seeing an age on the curve where people are starting to take a look at themselves and say, all right, I'm tired of forcing and struggling through life. I'm ready to get some help and to change and to acknowledge my weaknesses. Is there any kind of a trend to an age when that happens, or is it personality or
Danielle, I thought that there would be kind of this group of maybe range, age wise. I also thought that there would be a gender difference and openness, and it has not shown up anywhere. Like I said, I've talked with college students who are eagerly pursuing. So, what I have noticed is that it's a mindset. It's a person who is wanting to grow that is attracted to humility as a foundational principle in their lives. And so it has been really refreshing talking to students as young as, 21 years old who are really intentionally wanting humility to be a part of their character. And I have had some absolutely amazing conversations with some college students about it, that I've even learned from. And then, like I said, I've talked with people that are decades past me who are saying humility is a lifelong journey, and I'm still learning how humility influences the way that I treat people and the way that I lead. So it's for every age, really.
So I wanted to segue into your keynote. It's called Get Out of Your Own Way, Leveraging Humility as a Business Advantage. What are some of the biggest breakthroughs you see when leaders embrace that idea?
So we already mentioned one of them, and that is a willingness to ask for help. That is something that we get in our own way when we don't have a willingness to ask for help. Another thing that is very common and that can keep us in a place of not reaching our full potential is when we don't listen. And I have two historical examples of that I like to use because they're so well known and they really highlight this point really well. We all remember the Titanic, and that night, as they were going through that experience, there were 6 to 9 warnings that were sent to the Titanic, and they didn't heed those warnings. They didn't listen because they thought they were unsinkable. The Challenger, the shuttle in 1986, also is another example of it was January, the temperatures were below freezing, and one of the engineers had discovered through extensive research that the O-rings were not going to withstand those temperatures. And he had submitted that to the leadership team twice, actually. And they didn't listen to him because he wasn't part of the management team. So I think that is something so valuable that humility makes possible in our lives, is a willingness to listen. I recently also, I mean, this is just another example. I was recently talking with a pilot. He works for Fiji Airways and has been a captain for about 2 decades now. He said, humility is one of the most important things as a captain because you have to be willing to listen to your team. Even if it's their first day, their first flight, if they notice that there's some oil leaking out of the wing, I have to be willing to listen to them instead of saying, no, I'm the captain. I've checked everything. I know we're all good. If I don't listen to my team, I am going to create damage that is unnecessary. And so that is another really important part.
Good. The team is such a blessing because they can be all places.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only,
Right.
you cannot be all places at all times in your business, and having the sight of the customer and the
Right.
delivery and all of the experiences and the leaking oil from the plane. Like, you need your team.
Definitely. And Danielle, again, we bring in that wisdom. As the leader, we are aware of what is happening. So we're not going to listen to someone who's just complaining and fussing about something, right? We know also, as the leader, when it is important to listen to the information that's being shared with us, right? An engineer who's done research, who's spent intensive amounts of time looking into a situation is different from somebody that just comes and says, well, I don't think this is a good idea, right?
Yes, times 1,000. Your examples and your stories were so pointed because, though, to your point with, who we're listening to and when, the ego, the time, the money that went into the challenger, the
Mhm.
the anticipation, the excitement, but the ego had to be
Right.
so huge that they were going to do it no matter what that engineer said.
Right.
And it was,
And you think about those kind of situations in our own life. I brought up that being a leader who's guided by humility doesn't live in urgency. Could they have done that a month later? I mean, I'm not into all of the details of what that would require, but as a leader, we're able to see a bigger picture, a broader picture beyond just this moment. And going back to the definition that I give of we live beyond ourselves. It's not just about being able to press through and do it the way that we initially had planned, but see that there's other factors involved now that we need to pay attention to.
For business owners, asking for help can feel like admitting failure. How do you help people reframe it?
That is so true, Natalie. And it is great to process through that because failure can be such a setback and such a stumbling block for so many of us. When we have that feeling of failing at something, we just want to quit. We're like, well, I'm obviously not going to be able to get that. So I'll just stop trying. And it's actually not something that I address specifically in an entire section of the book, but I do talk about being able to see how those are learning opportunities for us and framing it in a way of this is something that didn't work this time, but what can I learn from it? What is it teaching me so that the next time I do it, I'm going to make some adjustments. I'm going to change some things. There's going to be something that I'm going to do differently next time. And I think that that's one of the most important ways for us to look at the failures as learning opportunities that actually set us up for greater success in the long term.
With that, when mistakes happen in a company, what does humility look like from a leader without losing ability or authority?
That is so good to reflect on. And I think the reason that it is so valuable is because when we make a mistake, our reaction typically is to try to cover it up. And then what happens is that as we're trying to cover it up, then we end up making a bigger mess. So the first step, the first step is acknowledge that a mistake has been made and say it to whoever it needs to be said to. I made a mistake. And once it's been acknowledged, then you can look for the solutions of how to move forward. But so often we internalize it and we're like, I made this mistake, so I need to fix it. I need to figure out how to make sure that it doesn't make a bigger mess. But in doing that and trying to manage it ourselves, we often end up making a bigger mess. And so when we say, you know what, I messed up here, I made a mistake, I'm going to need some input. How can we correct this? I know that that sets us up for a much better solution than when we just try to cover up a mistake that's been made.
mistake plus a cover up equals a bigger mess. I wrote down as you were saying that. And with step one of acknowledging, all of a sudden, you have freedom So that
Yes.
mistake is bondage. You're trying to cover it up. You don't want anybody to know. You're making a bigger mess. It's creating stress and anxiety. It's creating all kinds of things to you, even as a person, beyond what it's doing to the company, the people. And the minute you let that go and you can have freedom, all right, now we can do something about it. That
Yes.
moment of freedom, I would love to encourage business leaders to get to that moment faster. Let's acknowledge quicker. Let's get to that freedom place and let go of the stress and anxiety of carrying the cover up alone and get to freedom quick. And then we can move forward.
Yes. That is, you just hit it so well. It does. It's, we need to shorten, as leaders, shorten that gap of there's been a mistake. I'm going to acknowledge it because you said it so well. That's where the freedom comes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't help it. I'm thinking of sin in our lives. Like I did a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the kids, mom, I don't want to tell you, but this is what I did. And so they're carrying this burden. And we do it at
Hmm.
leaders all the time too of, oh, I made a big mistake and it was expensive and it was $10,000 and it's now a burden. But let's lay the
Yes.
burden down as quick as we can so then we can go recover the $10,000.
Exactly. Yes. And the thing is, so often when we're in those situations as a leader, we think, well, I can't admit it because then I'm going to lose credibility.
Right.
So false. That is absolutely false. We do not lose credibility because all of us are human. Every leader has made mistakes, has lost large amounts of money on a decision that they made. All of us have done that at some point. That's a part of our journeys. That is a part of, I've gotten to talk to so many business leaders who have been highly successful. And they talk about going bankrupt and having all of these low valleys in their lives along the way. So it's not helping us when we try to just have this reputation of, no, I'm going to just keep going because nobody can know about the mistake that I made, right?
All of this is just education. There's another diploma. More education. Yeah, we've had our share. I've definitely had my share of failed businesses and failed ventures. And but then we've also, I'm so thankful for that learning season and the learning time because now it makes decisions and things that we do so much better. Oh, we already learned that way. Let's do it this way now. Let's look forward, not in the back. And it's so fun.
Right. And that's what has enabled you to become the leader that you are today because you've allowed yourself to learn from those different experiences.
Mhm. Painful, unavoidable.
Yeah. I actually was recording on Flex with Purpose last night. Had a guest, Dr. Whitney Strauss, and she's leading an initiative here in Dallas, the Dallas Food Plan. And it started back in 2019, and she was sharing about that journey and talking about how, she was getting started to make connection with these farm owners and reaching out to them to do some research and learn from them. And they didn't trust her. And she's like, what? Why aren't you like, I'm trying to do something good for you. And why are you so resistant to me asking you these questions? And so she learned in that moment that she needed to show up differently with these people that she was wanting to engage with for the first time. And that spoke to me so loudly about, as a leader, being able to recognize when I need to make a change, and that each of these experiences throughout our life are teaching us something new about how to be a better team player.
Yeah, that's good. And I love how you even just simplified with show up differently.
Hmm.
So easy to not recognize that if we showed up differently, there'd be a different ripple effect.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, this perfectly leads into my next question, which is you also host the Flex with Purpose podcast. What conversations or themes have stood out to you the most through that platform?
Oh, I absolutely love the guests that I get to have conversations with, just blow me away, literally. Like, Dr. Whitney Strauss is leading this initiative with so many stakeholders, and it's, as you talked about, having a ripple effect that is generational. It's touching so many elements, and that's what she was talking about last night that I was surprised by. This started as wanting to help people have access to healthy food in every area of our community. And it has grown to something much, much larger that impacts so many different aspects of people's lives and the community as a whole. And I am not able to say that there is one conversation that is my favorite or that has been the most impacting for me. But I think that the thread or the theme that I would say has been the most impacting with all of these conversations that I've gotten to have with people is their authenticity,
Mm.
their willingness to say, you know what, I haven't accomplished these things. I have gotten to be a part of something bigger than myself.
Mhm.
And their willingness to say what mistakes they've made along the way and how they've grown and learned things. But really, that authenticity is so powerful when someone is willing to have that kind of a conversation.
Yeah, I love that. And we all need more authenticity and we crave it. We want it, and I love that you see that in the people you're talking to and they're bringing it out. It's so good. I love that. I love to see that.
And with that, I want to ask one final question for any owner listening who feels overwhelmed trying to carry everything themselves. What's one piece of encouragement you'd leave them?
You're not alone. There are networking groups that you can be a part of. You can reach out. I know that you have courses that they can take. I mean, I looked on your website. I was like, wow, y'all have so many resources available. Go to the website and find a course that you can be a part of. There are people that know exactly how you're feeling, and you don't have to try to figure it all out on your own. There are people who want to help you, and there are people who are willing to do that. So it's just a matter of asking for help.
Where can everyone find you? Like links, socials, everything?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn. My name's Schalee Sanchez. You can find me on Instagram, have a YouTube channel, have Facebook, and I have my own website. So you can go there also and see other things that I'm participating in.
Well, Shalise, thank you so much for being on this podcast today. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. And for everyone listening, bye, guys.
Hey, PPS, if you're still on here tuned in with us, please do check out also thenewflatrate.com. As Shallee mentioned in this episode, we have training, coaching, we have help available. And so our Freedom Builders University is our high-level coaching program where CEOs, managers, they come together and they share their journey. They share together their journey in the climb in their business. So check that out. Thanks for joining us.
If you want to learn more about the new flat rate, go to thenewflatrate.com. If you want to learn more about Schalee, go to ShaleeSanchez.com. If you want to listen to the Flex with Purpose podcast, I have it linked at the top of the description.